Let's find out what is making a buzz online now. It's time for Media Watch with Emma James. Hello there, Emma.
Hi there.
And we're going to start with the World Cup. Basically, football is not coming home, is it? When all's said
Sadly
and
not.
done.
And while English hearts may be broken, they've certainly been given over to the coach, Gareth Southgate, and losing last night has done nothing to change that. There's one particular image that seems to have people getting very emotional online, and it is this one. Long after all the fans had gone home, Gareth Southgate embracing his wife in the stands. Lots of people tweeting about this one. This might lead to peak Gareth love. Hashtag Gareth love, no less. This is more heartbreaking than Titanic. Who's cutting onions, asks this woman. And former BBC TV presenter Susanna Reid saying, I think a photo has just changed my mind on marriage. Now, to pour a little bit more emotion into the disappointment came the executive editor of the Sunday Times with the words that might have been, the cover that never was, he says on Twitter. And there is the image. England versus France World Cup final. That's what should have been going out on Sunday, but of course never will. Opposite end of the emotional spectrum, of course, is Croatia. And there are some images that have come out from one particular photographer, Yuri Cortez, who works for the AFP agency. He found himself basically in the middle of the melee during the celebrations. There's a close-up of the players. This is how it happened. Somebody else taking this photograph. He got knocked over. Once he'd gathered his camera back up, he then started shooting these images.
What a pro.
And yes, and they're a really interesting insight into that moment of just absolute mayhem. And
That's right after they scored that second goal in extra time, isn't it?
This was the very end, yes. And this face, I think, really shows you what it means to make it into the World Cup final.
Wow. We'll have to wait and see what happens on Sunday. Now, one Croatian player is not celebrating. Tell us why.
No, absolutely not. This is a moment where perhaps he's realising that country should have come before his own ego. The man in question is called Nikola Kalinic, and he actually was supposed to play in the first round against Nigeria, but refused to be substituted onto the pitch. He claimed to have back trouble, was then sent home in disgrace. Now, it's not the first time that he's done this. He actually has form. He basically thinks he's above being a substitute. And according to this guy...
Oh, he wanted to be in the first team. He didn't want to be on the bench.
So if he was going to be on the bench, he didn't want to play. It's kind of like taking your ball back and going home, but he didn't even get the ball. David Rera in Le Figaro says he's like the fifth Beatle, Pete Best, so close to greatness, so close to legendary status, but no, because the team decided if he wanted to be like that, he wasn't going to play any more part in the tournament whatsoever. So yes, he felt he was too good to be a replacement. Interestingly enough, he should have replaced Mario Mandzukic, who's actually the man who put Croatia into the final. So he was too good to replace him.
All these stories and these near misses.
Exactly.
Goodness me. Right, now, tell us about Donald Trump. And while we're talking to you, let's look at these pictures. We've got the US president pulling up in his car right now at Blenheim Palace in Oxfordshire. He'll be sitting down to a state dinner tonight with Theresa May. And we have seen a little snippet of some of the protests that have been going on in London, and you can see Blenheim Palace surrounded by countryside. There is no way any protesters are going to get anywhere near this, but it's going to be a pretty rowdy weekend, isn't it?
It is very much so. There are thousands of protesters insisting that they are going to make themselves heard while the US president is in the country. They've even said that when he stays in the ambassador's residence overnight, they're going to make so much noise they want to keep him awake all night. All sorts of protests planned. Of course, the Trump baby blimp will be flying in London tomorrow. They had hoped to actually be able to follow him all around the country because he's going to various different venues. And this is the cartoonist Ben Jennings who has
There he is.
Ah, there he is.
There he is,
arriving.
getting out of the car. Black tie dinner,
Indeed.
meeting with Theresa May and her husband Philip May. So they get ready for their dinner tonight. Trump's first official visit to the UK, of course, and there is his wife, Melania, the First Lady, as well.
Looking resplendent, I think it's fair to say.
Stunning, as always. Yeah.
Yes, quite the clothes horse, isn't she? But yes, the protesters, of course, aren't going to be interested in what fashion Melania Trump is wearing. They will
Unless she wears one of those jackets with the message on the back again.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That was a particularly strange one.
Yeah.
So, yes, the Trump baby balloon, we're not sure yet whether he's going to actually see it during his visit. It's going to be flown right by the Houses of Parliament. He'll be meeting again with Theresa May tomorrow in less dressed up fashion, no doubt, and also meeting the Queen. We don't yet know how high this blimp is going to go, but it is going to be pretty visible if you're in London and if you're anywhere near the Houses of Parliament. But other people have certainly not been giving him a warm welcome. Labour MP Dennis Skinner told the House of Commons that Trump was a fascist. He asked, what on earth is the government playing at, inviting this fascist to come to Britain? Talking, of course, about the policing costs, which are running into the millions for this visit. And he says all he is going to bring to the UK is mayhem. But certainly the UK, as usual, doing a good bit of pomp and circumstance here.
Yes. This is what we're good at. Better at this than at football, dare I say. Did I say that? Yes, I did. And then you can see the British Prime Minister and the US President standing next to each other there. They'll be doing a little photo shoot. I doubt they'll be making any statements at this point. This is all about the image, isn't it?
Very much so. And it's an image that he needs to work on, really. According to the polls, he is largely unpopular across the United Kingdom. There's a campaign going to get Green Day's American Idiot to #1 to mark his visit. Not sure whether they're going to achieve that, but lots of people protesting in their own ways. Amnesty International have hung a banner across Vauxhall Bridge in London saying human rights nightmare. People have even been going out with their dogs to protest. There's one dog with a sign on it saying "Impooch Trump." So people taking all sorts of measures to sort of voice their disconcert, their unhappiness, really, that he's been welcomed in this way. Even a fishmonger in London has put out a sign saying free bags of fish guts to throw at Trump.
Oh.
We did actually see as well online a video that's being shared a great deal, which I won't be showing to you at any time
You'll
on
have
air.
to look that one up yourself.
It's his cavalcade in going through Camden, straight down the high street, right past Sainsbury's supermarket. And the gentleman who filmed it does nothing but raise a finger to all of the cars in this cavalcade. A phenomenally expensive-looking cavalcade.
That's a strange route to take, isn't it?
Well, yes, apparently that was on their way to pick him up. He discovered later that his raising a finger was being done to no one in particular because Donald Trump wasn't actually on board at the time. But it hasn't stopped people sharing that video.
Well, it's all about the imagery
widely.
and the symbolism, isn't it, these trips? Because he will be hoping that this is the image that, will be on the front pages tomorrow and not that blimp.
Absolutely.
And you've got to wonder if that has got to him. But I mean, you can see him sharing a joke there of smiles with Theresa May, but he hasn't made it easy for her, has he? I mean, he's been talking about Boris Johnson, the Foreign Secretary who quit in Monday in protest at May's Brexit plans. He says that, he might meet with him. He's criticised her Brexit plan quite openly.
Absolutely, and just today he was insisting that the Brits like him because they are against immigration and he believes there should be a hard Brexit. He even said Brexit is Brexit, which was almost like
We've heard that before, haven't we?
Exactly. The sort of official mantra, if you like, of some of the Brexiteers, that it must happen and it must be a hard Brexit. But yes, it will be interesting to see how this pans out because he has been very outspoken about the Brits. It will be interesting to see. I mean, he insists that they like him. It doesn't appear to be the case. Around 100,000 people are expected to turn out, all told, across the different venues to voice their protests. Some have been turning out already, especially up at the Trump golf course in Scotland, Trump Turnberry.
And this is supposed to be Britain's biggest ally. Let's not forget that. I mean, this is
how
unheard
times
of.
change. Yes, it is very, very different to the kind of reception that you would have expected. Really,
Bill
for any
Clinton,
other.
or I mean, even George W. Bush, and his chummy relationship with Tony Blair. I mean, you didn't see anything like that.
It is a very, very different time that we are living in right now, and it's interesting to see as well that Trump Turnberry in Scotland, according to Washington Post, is really suffering from the association with the Trump name, as well as those other hotels that bore the Trump name in the US that have now removed the name to stop the drop in business. Trump Turnberry has had $205 million poured into it by Donald Trump. But according to public records, it's actually lost millions of dollars. So it's really not doing well at all. And a lot of that is down to the fact that he's just not popular in the United Kingdom.
It's become a toxic brand.
Very much so.
They are planning some pretty big protests up in Scotland as well, where he is hoping to have a couple of days playing golf.
Absolutely.
And of course, his mother hails from Scotland.
Yes.
Mary McLeod.
One of the few people speaking out publicly right now in support of this Trump visit is Nigel Farage, the former leader of the UKIP party, now very much an ally of Donald Trump, talks often on Fox News. And what he has said is that this Trump baby blimp, for one thing, is the biggest insult to a sitting US president ever, which I think is a slight exaggeration, but it gives you an idea of what those who are pro-Trump think of these protests that are happening.
Yeah, because that blimp is also insulting a lot of Americans who voted for Donald Trump, which is something that we have to bear in mind as well.
Absolutely, because he didn't get there by just the power of his personality. He does have a lot of support, and it is very obvious. I've seen many Americans commenting on Twitter today just how angry they are at the way in which people are reacting in the United Kingdom to his visit. Now, originally it was going to be an all-singing, all-dancing state visit. This has been reduced and scaled back a great deal. Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, had a lot to do with scaling back just how much of this pomp and circumstance we would see during Trump's visit. But certainly he's being welcomed in a very grand fashion right now.
Absolutely. All right, Emma, thank you very much indeed. Emma James there, and we'll leave you with these images from the beautiful Blenheim Palace over in Oxfordshire. Donald Trump, the US president, has just arrived. He'll be sitting down to a state dinner very shortly.